Vietnam, the nation that rose, imagine a country that was shattered by decades of war, a country that was isolated, sanctioned, and left with almost nothing. Now imagine that same country just 50 years later, building metro systems, launching technology parks, attracting billions in foreign investment, and lifting tens of millions of its people out of poverty. This is not a fairy tale. This is not an accident. This is the result of sacrifice, vision, and an unbreakable human spirit. This is Vietnam. To understand where Vietnam is going, you must first understand where it has been. For much of the 20th century, Vietnam was a battlefield. It endured colonization, occupation, and one of the most devastating wars in modern history. A conflict that left millions dead, cities in ruins, and an entire generation of children who had never known peace. When the guns finally fell silent in 1975, Vietnam faced a new enemy, poverty. The country was isolated internationally, crippled by sanctions and struggling to feed itself. Families survived on rations. Entire provinces had no electricity. The future felt very far away, and yet the Vietnamese people did not collapse. They endured. They rebuilt. They planted rice in fields that had once been bombed. They sent their children to school in buildings patched together with whatever remained. That resilience, earned through suffering, would become the quiet foundation of everything that followed. In 1986, Vietnam made a decision that would change its destiny forever. It was called Doi Moi, which in Vietnamese means renovation. It was a bold set of economic reforms that opened Vietnam's doors to private enterprise, foreign investment, and market forces, while the country maintained its political stability and long-term direction. It was not a small step. It was a leap of faith by a leadership willing to change course rather than repeat the mistakes of the past. The results were extraordinary. Within a decade, Vietnam went from near famine to being one of the world's largest rice exporters. Poverty rates that once exceeded 70% collapsed to under 5% today. Life expectancy rose. Literacy rose. Hope returned. Doi Moi did not just transform the economy. It transformed what Vietnamese people believed was possible for themselves and for their children. Look at Vietnam today and you see a country in full motion that metro lines now carry millions of passengers through the streets of Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City. Expressways cut through mountains that once took entire days to cross. Modern ports handle container ships from every corner of the world. Industrial zones and technology parks rise on land that was jungle just 20 years ago. Vietnam has consistently ranked among Asia's fastest growing economies. Foreign direct investment pours in year after year, from Japan, South Korea, Singapore, Europe, and the United States. Global companies that once built only in China have made Vietnam their new home. When the COVID-19 pandemic disrupted global supply chains, the world was forced to ask a dangerous question. What happens when everything depends on one country? The answer accelerated a shift that was already underway, and Vietnam was ready. Major technology companies began relocating or expanding manufacturing to Vietnam. Smartphones, laptops, semiconductors, solar panels, products used by hundreds of millions of people around the world, are now made here by Vietnamese workers in Vietnamese factories. Vietnam has not simply joined the global supply chain. It has become one of its most critical links. When the world needed alternatives, Vietnam raised its hand and delivered. Vietnam's transformation has three phases. In Hanoi, the ancient capital, 1,000-year-old temples stand beside glass office towers. The new metro weaves under streets that once echoed with the sound of war. Government, history, and modernity exist in the same breath. In Ho Chi Minh City, the commercial heartbeat of the nation, skyscrapers define a skyline that barely existed a generation ago. Startups and corporations compete in the same neighborhoods. The city moves fast, and it does not apologize for it. And in Da Nang, between the mountains and the sea, Vietnam is building something quieter but equally significant, a livable, connected, modern city that shows what urban planning can achieve when it starts from a clean page. Perhaps the most powerful engine of Vietnam's future is not its factories or its highways. It is its people. The average age in Vietnam is just 31 years old. This is a nation of young people, curious, connected, competitive in the best possible sense. Vietnam consistently ranks among the highest in Southeast Asia for mathematics and science education. Its students outperform those of many far wealthier nations. A new generation of Vietnamese engineers, designers, doctors, and entrepreneurs is entering its most productive years, at exactly the moment when the country needs them most. They grew up watching their parents work themselves out of poverty. They have inherited the hunger, but now they also have the tools, and they are building something their grandparents could only have dreamed of. Vietnam is also discovering the extraordinary power of its own culture. Millions of visitors now travel to Vietnam each year, drawn by the emerald waters of Ha Long Bay, the lantern-lit streets of Hoi An, the mysterious caves of Phong Nha, and the food, always the food. Vietnamese cuisine has quietly become one of the world's most beloved, fresh, bold, layered with generations of flavor. Pho, banh mi, bun bo, ca pei trung, dishes that once fed a people through hardship, are now celebrated in the restaurants of London, Paris, New York, and Tokyo. Vietnam is not just exporting electronics. It is exporting its soul, and the world is welcoming it with open arms. And then there is Vietnam's diplomacy, perhaps its most underappreciated achievement of all. In a world increasingly divided between great powers, Vietnam has chosen a path of principled independence. Its foreign policy rests on a simple but profound idea: friend to all, enemy to none. Vietnam maintains deep economic ties with China, its largest neighbor and trading partner, while simultaneously deepening strategic partnerships with the United States, the European Union, Japan, India, and South Korea. It has signed comprehensive trade agreements with nearly every major economy on Earth. This is not naivety, it is wisdom. Vietnam knows what it means to be caught between great powers. It has paid that price in blood. Today it refuses to be anyone's pawn. It sits at every table, speaks in its own voice, and protects its national interests with a calm confidence that commands respect. Behind every statistic in this story is a family. Behind every factory is a father who wanted his daughter to go to university. Behind every metro station is a mother who no longer spends 2 hours a day in traffic. Behind every scholarship is a grandmother who once planted rice by hand so her grandchildren would never have to. Vietnam's rise is not abstract. It is profoundly, achingly personal. It is a country where memory of suffering is still close. And yet the present is brighter than any previous generation could have imagined. Vietnam has proven something rare to the world, that with patience, discipline, and strategic vision, and above all, with a people who simply refuse to give up, any nation can transform itself. Not because the world gave it a chance, but because it created its own. This is Vietnam, not a country that was handed its future, a country that earned it, one generation at a time. If this story moved you, share it, because some stories deserve to be heard far beyond the borders where they happened. Thanks for watching. Voice is AI generated. Don't forget to subscribe and click the like button if you like my presentation. Subscribe for more stories about nations, economies, and the extraordinary people shaping our world. And leave a comment below. Which part of Vietnam's journey surprised you the most?